And I think we're live. I have a cat. So the trick here is not to move too much because otherwise he will turn from the friendliest cat in the world to somebody who absolutely hates you and then dig his claws in. Hello, you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for this special live Q&A. Loki's going to be answering questions about the board game industry for the next 90 minutes. Hopefully, you can hear me and see me okay. Vicky's giving us the thumbs up. So, yes, welcome to the live Q&A. You're going to have to, all you need to do is just shuffle a little bit and then, oh, there you go. Right. Oh, now it's got that out of the way. Anybody listening to this as a podcast will be thinking, what the heck's going on? So for those of you watching in black and white, that was Loki climbing all over my shoulders. Right, welcome to the live Q&A for November 2024. As always, the format of the show is going to be similar to previous shows in that we're going to be going through all of the questions that I have been asked in advance on the Board Game Geek Guild. That will probably take about 45 minutes, and then we'll be going over to the live questions. So if you are watching live and you do have a question for me, please start with the word question in capitals, and then Vicky will transfer those questions into the document. But I'm not going to be getting to those questions for about 45 minutes or so. And we'll be doing the winner of previous month's contest. We'll be doing this month's contest, and let's see where the show takes us. Right, okay, so moving over to the Guild on Board Game Geek. And if you are listening back to this or watching this back later and you think, oh, I can never catch these live Q&As, like Carl. Carl sent me a message or posted on the Guild and said, I'm rarely able to watch these live as he's driving home from work, but hopefully you can watch them afterwards. And if you do have a question that you want to ask and you can never make these shows live, then over on Board Game Geek, Guild number 2258, I post a thread a few days before asking for questions in advance. And that's the questions that I'm going to be going through today. This is not a Patreon only thing. Anybody who's on Board Game Geek can join the guild and you can ask me questions in advance a few days before. Please don't start posting there and asking me random questions now. Okay, so first question from Board Games James, who I've seen in the chat, who said, did I get anything played at GridCon? And out of all of the games that I did play at GridCon, what did I like the best? So GridCon, for those people that don't know, it's the convention that me and Vicky organise. We came back from there over the weekend. We ran it over the weekend. We're both still completely exhausted. I'm struggling to stay awake this afternoon. And unfortunately, one of the most disappointing things from GridCon 5 is that I didn't get to play any games myself. Now, I did at GridCon 4. I managed to play a couple of games at GridCon 4, so I was actually quite hopeful that at some point, maybe on the Friday evening, maybe on the Saturday afternoon, I would actually get a chance to play a game. I had a couple of games in mind that I wanted to play, but the opportunity never arose because we had a number of things going on that needed my attention on a regular basis. So unfortunately, one of the easiest questions to answer, I didn't actually play any games at GridCon 5. Next question from Martin. He says, forgive me if I've asked this before, but he hasn't, I don't think. Have I played Arcs yet? And if so, what is my opinion? I haven't played Arcs yet, but I have an opinion on the game. He said, if not, are you interested? I know this is a true dudes on a map game, and that is not always your own cup of tea. So I have made a decision already that I'm not going to play Arcs. And it's a similar reason, sort of, why I made the decision that I'm not going to play Root. Slightly different. The reason why I decided early on that I wasn't going to play Root is because I didn't have, we have limited time. I can't play all of the games. And I knew that playing Root would require a number of practice games and a number of games to learn all of the different factions, or certainly at least learn the faction that I was going to play. And I decided when people were talking about it and everybody was raving about it that I've said, no, that's a game which I'm just going to say no to. It's not my kind of thing anyway. But Arcs is a really interesting one because at the moment, people use the phrase love it or hate it way too much. It has become a phrase which is just, oh, you either love it or you hate it. And most of the time, that's not true. With Arcs, it seems to be. I know people that have said, not only this is the best game of the year, that this is one of the best games ever designed. And I know other people, both of whom opinions I respect, who've said, this is a shockingly awful game and they absolutely hated it and never ever want to play it again. So I've heard different stories about these games different stories about this game. But I have it on good authority from a number of other people, even those who like the game, that have said, Paul, you're not going to like this game. And based on certain things that I've read about the game, I have decided I'm not even going to bother trying it. And you might be thinking, well, you know, especially if you like the game, oh, Paul, you should give it a chance. You might like it. And you're absolutely right. In an ideal world where I had 1,000 hours a day to play games, I would play it and I would try it because you know what? I might like it. I don't think I'll like it based on everything I've read about it, but my time is limited. All of our times are limited. We don't have time to play all of the games. And I've already made the decision that that one is not going to get played. So there we go. Next question from Valda. Now, I had an interesting conversation with Valda at GridCon about ISS Vanguard. And her question is, following on from the conversation about ISS Vanguard and the thing that happened, do you think you would ever play through the campaign again? And have you ever played a campaign game through more than once? So without giving too many spoilers away, there are some moments of the ISS Vanguard campaign which are big moments, like very, very big moments in the story and what happens. And I remember coming back from Rick and Victoria's on the evening where the thing that happened, which we won't talk about, and I was angry, I was upset, I was in shock, and I couldn't get to sleep for hours. And that's because my emotions are wide open, and I am extremely sensitive to any kind of, you know, good or bad emotions going on. And I was literally in shock because of the way that the story went and what happened. Now, it's great that board games can provoke that kind of, you know, emotional reaction in somebody, especially somebody like me. But anyway, I was having this conversation with Valda about it, and she was like, yeah, whatever, it didn't bother her whatsoever. And I was like, what? I was in pieces. But anyway, the question is, would I ever play through the campaign again? And the answer to that is no. Have I ever played a campaign game through more than once? And the answer to that is no. But this brings on a whole other discussion about what is a campaign game. So let's focus on ISS Vanguard, and let's also talk about Tainted Grail, the original Tainted Grail that me and Vicky have played all the way through to completion. Would I ever play either of those campaigns again? And the answer to that is no. And the reason is, despite those two games being my two favourite narrative-driven games, a lot of it is about the story. A lot of it is taking part in the story. And if we were to play through it again, it would feel too similar than previous. A lot of the enjoyment of playing those games is experiencing that story for the first time and going through those wow moments. And you're not going to have that to the same level another time. Plus, again, going back to the same thing that I said, limited time. Again, if I had 1,000 hours a day and I had 3 friends that wanted to play the ISS Vanguard campaign again and said, Paul, will you play through it again and join us as a 4th player? I would, because I really enjoyed it, but I wouldn't have the same impact. It wouldn't have the same impact on me. But just going off at a tangent slightly about what is a campaign game, let's look at another very, very big popular campaign game called Gloomhaven. Could you play and would you play Gloomhaven a second time? And question for the chat, anybody who's watching this live or if you're watching this back afterwards, have you played through the Gloomhaven campaign more than once? Because although it is a campaign game, again, if I had lots of time, I could easily see me playing through the Gloomhaven campaign again. And the reason for that is, although there is narrative elements to the campaign, that's not what the game is. The game is about the individual scenarios, taking your character, the hand management system, not about the story. It's about the individual scenarios. And if you play a Gloomhaven scenario with different characters, it will be different. You know, I've played Gloomhaven dozens of times, and I've played it on the app dozens of times as well. And even if you play the same scenario, even if you play it with the same characters, it still feels different. You're not losing that much by playing it again. And I've recently had a lot of discussions with people about the new game that's coming from Chip Theory Games, Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. Technically, it is a campaign game, but it's a completely replayable campaign game. Even if you play the same quest, with the same map, with the same characters, it will play out differently. And it's that those types of campaign games are not about the narrative as such. The narrative is there, but they are completely replayable. So hopefully that's answered the question. Next question from Brian. When can we expect to see a live Tim Tam Slam on the channel? Well, if I'd have read that message before when we had time to go out shopping, then we didn't. So what I'll do is I'll make a note, Brian, that we need to buy some Tim Tams, which I did see in Tesco. And on the next live Q&A, which will be probably between Christmas and New Year, because if we're staying here and my dad's not going to be here, we could probably do that. Anyway, sometime around the end of December will be the final live Q&A of the year. I will do a live Tim Tam Slam. So for those people that don't know, that is where you get a Tim Tam, which is basically like a penguin, but it's the Australian version of them. And what do? You hollow it out or something, or you try and drink tea through it. Anyway, I'll do it. Whatever it is, I will do it. That will be happening in December. Oh, joy. Next question from Chad. What are your top 5 Splotter games in order? Now, Chad is obviously not aware of the difficulties that I have putting together any kind of top X list, but I don't even know if I have played 5 Splotter games. Let me see. I've played Roads and Boats. I have played Antiquity. I have played Bus. I have played Food Chain Magnate. I have played The Great Zimbabwe. Okay. I have played... Is it Greed? It might be called Greed. Somebody in the chat tell me. Is it Greed? It was a cross between an 18xx game and a something else game. I can't remember. I've played Duck Dealer once. What else is there from Splotter? I haven't played their latest one, Horseless Carriage. I've played Indonesia as well. Greed is a Splotter. Thank you, Carl. Right, okay, so Greed Inc., that was it. So they're the ones that I have played. Out of those, some of those for me were awful, and I just did not enjoy them. Roads and Boats always holds a special place for me, and I have played Roads and Boats and I have enjoyed it. Bus is probably the best of them that I've played. Yeah, Bus is really, really good. I played Indonesia once, and this was about 20 years ago. And I played it with a group of people who were very clever and they understood what they were doing and they could work it out. I played it because I wanted to try it and I hadn't got the faintest idea what I was doing. I essentially made random moves the whole game because I had no idea what I was doing and I was unable to work out the implications of the actions that I was taking in the game. You know where this is going. I won that game. Now, Indonesia is a very good game, but I won the game by making completely random, uneducated moves against players who were much, much better at the game than me. I have no idea how. No idea how whatsoever. So that's not my top 5 in order, but probably Bus is probably, yeah, the better of the games. And I'd say Roads and Boats I enjoy. I went off Food Chain Magnate very quickly because it's just too brutal. And again, all Splotter games share a very common and similar things, is that what might appear to be a small move in the game has a huge impact, not just on you, but also on the other players as well. And that isn't to my liking, generally. Next question from Gavin. How often do you get to play an expansion with a game that you own? He says, with a few exceptions, I generally find people coming back to a game and saying, oh, let's just play the base game to relearn it. My experience with games is similar to yours, Gavin, in that most of the time I am just playing the base game. But it isn't because people are coming back to it and saying, we've not played this in a while, so let's just play the base game. For me, and I'm going to go out here and I'm going to say 90%, if not higher, of the games that I play are with at least one player who's never played it before. Now, the exception to that is when I'm doing a sponsored live stream on the channel. Most of the time, the people who have played it will have played it previously. So, for example, this Friday, I am doing a sponsored live playthrough of Andromeda's Edge with Pete and Rob. Pete and Rob came over last night and we sat down and we played the game. So they're going to be playing it with me on Friday night. They've already played the game. So therefore, that game on Friday night, all 3 players will have played it before. But most of the time, as I say, probably 90% of the time, when I play a game, it is with new players for the first time, and therefore, most of the time, I don't include any expansion stuff. It's one of those, downsides of what I do, is that I very rarely get to play the same game with the same people, so that I get to actually include expansion stuff. That's just how it is. Next question from Klaus. I heard that Vital Lacerda's next game was played at GridCon. Yes, so Vital Lacerda is a guest at GridCon. He's been at every GridCon that we have run. And he always brings with him his latest prototype of whatever game he's got that he's working on. And last year, he brought the prototype of Speakeasy, and lots of people got the chance to play that. This year, he brought the Great Library. So that is Vital Lacerda's next big box game with Eagle Griffin that he's working on. It's called the Great Library. I spoke to Vital about it, and he said the game is now finished. He's obviously still playtesting it and everything else, but he thinks the game is, 99% done. I didn't get a chance to play it, because as I mentioned earlier on, I didn't get a chance to play any games at GridCon. So I can't give you an overview, and I can't give you any thoughts. But one of my patron supporters, in fact, even if you weren't a patron supporter, if you were at GridCon and you got a chance to play the Great Library, then please share your thoughts with Klaus. Somehow. Yes. Next question from Adrian. Which game is easier to table? I didn't realise that table was a verb, but it now is. So which game is easier to table, World Order or Revenant? This is a really good question. Now, both of those games I have done sponsored playthroughs for on the channel recently. Revenant is on Kickstarter right now. This is the new game from Mind Clash Games, which is set in the Voidfall universe, but is a completely different standalone game. And World Order, which is also on Kickstarter right now. And yet, I have done sponsored playthroughs of both of them. The question from Adrian, though, is which game is easier to table? And I assume by that, which game is the easier one to get to the table? Which one is easier to set up, easier to teach people, easier, more accessible? And I'd have to say that they are about the same. And I'm not saying that as a kind of get out because I can't think of an answer. But I thought about this earlier on today. And I think, although the games are very different, World Order and Revenant are possibly about the same level of complexity. Now, I think Revenant might be slightly more complex, and one of the differences in Revenant is you have a wide variety of actions available to you at the start of the game. So I never forget my first turn in my first game of Revenant was like, what? I've got like 8 different ships that I can go on, and 7 of those ships have 2 different actions, or I could go here, or I could go here. Oh, wow. You have so many options at the start of the game, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. World Order has less breadth in terms of the actions that you can take, because you've got your cards in your hand, and you basically play from the cards in your hand. But Revenant is more likely to be a 2-hour game, and World Order is likely to be a 3. I mean, your first game of World Order is probably going to be 3.5. Your first game of Revenant is probably going to be 2.5. So, yeah, I think roughly they're about the same. Revenant a little bit more complex and a lot more choices that you have at the start of the game, but is a shorter game. Next question from Damon. Have you ever played Slay the Spire, the board game or the video game? If so, what did you think of each of these, and how does the board game compare? Would you consider doing a playthrough? Right, so first of all, no. Yes. Great. Very well, and yes. In that order. So, no, I have never played the board game, Slay the Spire. Yes, I have played the video game. A lot. I'm not saying that I'm amazing at the game, but I have played it quite a lot. What did I think of each of these? I enjoyed the computer game a lot. I don't like the art style, but that's subjective. But I did like the game. I do like my games with a little bit of permanence, though. And I know Slay the Spire is your classic, everything resets after the run. It's over, finished, done. How does the board game compare? This is based on what other people have told me. It's very, very good. It's a very, very good implementation of the computer game. That's what people have told me. I can't go into any more details myself. Would I consider doing a playthrough? I would. Like lots and lots of games, I would be more than happy to cover Slay the Spire on the channel. I don't have any relationship with the publisher. And somebody said, oh, you should reach out to them. They'll probably send you a copy of the game and you can cover it on the channel. I could, but right now I'm looking at a potential 3 to 4 month backlog of games that I've got. And I don't want to make my life any more, stressful than reaching out to a publisher saying I'll do a playthrough of a game and then not being able to fit it in for 4 or 5 months. So I'm kind of I'm trying not to take on anything else at the moment. Right, next question from Zach. Curious on my thoughts of Lands of Evershade. So Lands of Evershade is the new game from Awakened Realms, from the same designer as Tainted Grail and the same designer as ISS Vanguard. So my thoughts on it, bearing in mind, all I had was a demo of the game at Essen. That was it. It was just an introduction to the game, an introduction to the system, a short campaign overview with some story-related choices, and then a battle. And we didn't even play the battle out in full. And I was barely awake at the time. I remember I was struggling to stay awake, which was really embarrassing because this was like one of my highlights of Essen, getting to meet the designer. But yeah, the price is high. You probably get a huge amount of content in there. There are a glut of campaign games. Would it scratch the itch of playing D&D without a DM? Yes, absolutely. The big difference with Lands of Evershade compared to Tainted Grail and ISS Vanguard is it felt more like a role-playing game. The way that you have your character and the way that that character progresses and gets equipment and skills and things like that, and the actual adventures itself felt very much like a fantasy world where you're having to make big decisions which will affect the storyline, both on a small scale, like what will happen in the next scenario, and on a wider scale as well. Very much enjoyed it, thought it was absolutely fantastic just from my initial demo. So apologies if that's cost you any money. He's curious as to know how the development process works in Awakened Realms. Is Christoph writing story only, or is he involved in designing the gameplay and the mechanisms too? He does everything. I mean, he's not the only one. There is a development team working on it. But one reason why I'm a big fanboy of him is that he is the one that writes the story. He's the one that creates the world, creates the scenario, does the story, does the writing, and also creates the mechanisms as well. So yeah, there are other people involved, but it'll be his name on the box. Next question from Frank. After you released the final version of the Civolution video, what are your final thoughts on the project and the game? Well, Civolution, for those people that don't know, is my #1 game of 2024. I love the game. It is so enjoyable to play. It ticks all of my boxes, and it may not be the best game of 2024, but it is for me, because every time I play it, I have an absolute blast. I think the game is phenomenally fun to play. I think it's a very, very good game, but, I know some of the criticisms that people have said, oh, you've got the dice rolling, and they don't like that. For me, I've had a fantastic time every single time I played it. So, yeah, Civolution is my #1 game for 2024. I don't think that's going to change. I do have some games that I haven't played yet, like Andromeda's Edge, which I played last night for the first time. But I can tell you now that's not going to beat Civolution for my #1 game of the year. So yeah, absolutely love it. And Frank says, with Galactic Cruise and another how to play video, I'm going to move my next what is going to be my #1 game in 2025. So yeah, 2025 is already looking very good. We are having Galactic Cruise, which was going to be my #1 game of 2024, but it's not going to be out till probably January, February time. And then you have Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era, which was again planned to be out in November, December this year, but now isn't going to be out until early next year. Both of those games are absolutely incredible. So we've already got a great year next year. Galactic Cruise coming out, Betrayal of the Second Era, Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. Yeah, both of those are going to be absolutely fantastic. He'd love to hear more about the new project and its reason. I'm not sure what you mean by the new project. Ask me later on. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Right, Jenny is asking, what happened to Asian tigers? So for those people that don't know, a couple of weeks ago, there was a video scheduled to go live on my channel on Sunday. I think it was Sunday, the 3rd of November. And it was all planned. The YouTube video was up. I'd advertised it. I'd sent people the link to it. And then the publisher contacted me and said, don't you remember the conversation that we had at Essen where we said, please can you not do the video yet? And I'm like, no, I have no memory of that, but you're the client. This was going to be a sponsored video. So I pulled the video and it didn't happen. I have spoken to them and they've basically said that the game was sold out and therefore there is very little benefit to them in sponsoring a playthrough video when nobody can actually buy the game at the moment. And I absolutely agree with that. There are also some small issues with the game in terms of the production. There was a bit of a problem with the board of the game, and there's also some controversy over the AI art that was used on the front cover. So I believe that they are going to be doing a new front cover of the game, and that they're going to be doing another version of the game. You know, it's not going to be a second edition. There's no rules that's going to change or anything like that, but they are going to fix those issues. And hopefully there's going to be a new version of the game next year. And that's the one that they're going to want me to cover. So for me, it was actually good news. I was absolutely exhausted and it was going to have to be a Sunday, which means I would have had to have taken basically the entire weekend out to learn the game, practice the game, and then do the live stream on the Sunday. So I'm glad from a personal point of view that it got cancelled. And I was also feeling myself a little bit about the board and the AI art and things like that. So yeah, that's what happened with that one. Next question from Jenny. Which do I like more, World Order or Hegemony? Well, Jenny, what you need to do is you need to go and watch my monthly video log from last month, because I actually talk about this in my monthly video log. I will give you a very, very quick synopsis of it, but I do talk more about the games there. Personally, I prefer World Order for a couple of reasons. I'm not saying it's the better game. It's just, if I was given a choice, that is the one that I would play rather than Hegemony. Would I keep both in my collection? Yeah, I think I would. I think I probably would keep both in my collection. Yeah. Next question from Jenny, and I don't quite understand this question. Jenny says, with the new Apple App Store fee on Patreon, would you want your future supporters to use something other than the iOS app? So I have no idea what that actually means. If Jenny, if you're watching this, or if you're watching this back afterwards, or if anybody else can help me with this, I don't understand what that is, because Patreon is a crowdfunding effective platform where people financially support me with monthly or annual contributions. They don't need an app. I have the Patreon app, which I don't actually use on the iPad because it's terrible. I use Patreon through the website. But Jenny is saying that there is a new Apple App Store fee on Patreon. So I don't actually know what that means. I don't want any of my supporters to pay anything extra other than the Patreon fee. So if you are a Patreon supporter of mine, you are paying a monthly or an annual fee, and you are paying that through the Patreon page. I was not aware that any of my Patreon supporters are paying an additional fee to Apple for the use of the app. So yeah, all of that is, I don't understand that. Let me know. And lastly, Jenny says she wants to share a picture of her current foster cats. Their names are Benson and Olivia. They are rescues, just like Thor and Loki were. And they were looking for a family to adopt them in the... you're fostering them. Right. So these cats are looking for a family to adopt them in the Greater Toronto area in Canada. And I have a picture of Benson and Olivia, if I press this button here. Now, So me and Vicky have discussed this before. We could never be foster parents to cats, because if we took them in and we fostered them, we would never let them go. So there you go. If you are in the Greater Toronto area and you are interested in fostering those cats, let Jenny know, because they are very, very, very cute. Yes. So yeah, contact. You can contact Jenny through me, presumably, if you are interested in fostering those cats. Right, next. What have we got? We have Roger Burrows. Roger Burrows says, which 2 or 3 of the recent medium weight Euros do you think are best at 2 players? I am not going to be able to answer that, because what you're saying is recent medium weight Euros. Well, first of all, the recent medium weight Euros I have probably only played once or twice. So I'm not going to be able to say which ones I think are best at 2 players, because I don't know. The only one that I think that I've played at 2 players recently was Tea Garden, and it worked absolutely fine at 2 players. So there you go. I recommend that. Tea Garden. I recommend that at 2 players. But I don't know whether it would be best at 2 players. I actually don't think it would be, because there are places where you can place your Tea Garden pavilions on the board, and it seemed to be a little bit open with 2 players. There wasn't that much competition of where you go. But yes. Now, Roger says, I'm not necessarily looking for games that are better at 2 than 3. He's just looking for games that play well at 2. Oh, right. Okay, because this is his normal play account. Well, as I say, Tea Garden is the only one that I have played at 2 player, and that worked absolutely fine. But I don't know about the other ones. What I would suggest, Roger, is if you head on over to the guild on Board Game Geek, Vicky will put a link to it, or Loki might put a link to it in the chat, and just post a question on there to say, which of the most recent medium weight Euros do you think are best at 2 players? Because there are a lot of people watching this video who predominantly also play at 2 players. They might be able to give you some advice. Right, we got some questions from Mario. Which do I like more, sun or rain? Now, that's actually a really good question, because I really like it when it's a nice warm day and I just go outside and I just feel the warmth of the sun on my skin, and it relaxes me and it feels nice. Whereas sitting in the studio when I'm editing a video, or I'm doing something in the studio and it's raining outside and I've got the window open and I can hear the rain, I really like that as well. So I like both of them. What I don't like is the wind. If you combine the wind with the rain, I don't like that. And I also don't like it when it's cold. So cold, wind and rain I don't like, but rain on its own I do really like. Whether it be actually just nice gentle rain, and also lying in bed or snuggling up on the sofa when it's torrentially raining outside, that's quite nice as well. Follow-up question is, which do I enjoy more, outside sun or inside warm blanket? Probably outside sun. Vicky's thinking warm blanket. And again, nothing better than lying in bed with a nice warm blanket with the electric blanket on when it's nice and cold. But as I say, going outside in the sun and just getting a little bit of, natural warmth is nice. Which kind of weather makes the more enjoyable plans, and what are those plans? Probably if it's not raining, because then we could, not that we go out that much, but if it is nice weather, then we could, go out geocaching, or, go to the beach or something like that. Me and Vicky don't play that many games together. So if it's raining, the idea of, it's raining, we'll stay in and play some games all day, we wouldn't do that. We would stay in and watch some TV, and I'd do some painting, which is also quite nice sometimes. And the final question, this is the important one. When inside the house, do you walk with socks or barefoot? I generally, most of the time, walk with socks. And the reason for that is I have very sensitive soles of my feet. So I can't really go anywhere barefoot, because the soles of my feet are quite sensitive. Now, Vicky has said to me that we've had lots and lots of questions already. Is that right? Do we think it feels a bit too early to say? I'm going to scroll down and see how many questions we've had. Where's the start of the live questions? There's the live questions. No, we're okay for a bit. We're okay for about another 5 or 10 minutes. But in about 5 or 10 minutes, I will be saying no more questions. So what I probably will say now is this is your last chance for any questions. If you have any questions that you want to ask me today, put them in the chat now, because in about 5 or 10 minutes time, we're going to be saying no more questions. Okay, so where were we? Rosap, now that I have played Elder Scrolls, how does this rank amongst the other chip theory games? Do you prefer it to Cloudspire? That's not fair. That's a really difficult decision. But honestly, I think it's probably better. I think it's my favourite game from Chip Theory Games, and I think I can say that with some confidence. Cloudspire is amazing. Cloudspire is a very, very good game that I believe is underrated, and it's a little niche, but Cloudspire is a fantastic game. But I prefer Elder Scrolls, definitely, for a number of reasons. But those are my top 2 games from Chip Theory Games. So yes, for me, it ranks number 1, and I do prefer it to Cloudspire. Next question from Jim. What do you think of Revive? It has arrived on Alpha on Board Game Arena, which I did know about earlier this week. And he's thinking of giving it a chance. Revive was an extremely good game, and it probably would have been. I remember doing my top 10 games of that year, and Revive was on there. Revive was in my top 10 games of the year, but it would have been a lot higher if it weren't for what I think is a problem with the game. And the problem with Revive is you get a random faction to play, which has a special ability. Then you have these scoring cities, which get laid out at random at the start of the game. And there's a third thing as well. And I can't remember exactly what it is. Oh, these artifact cards. That's it. You get a random artifact card at the start of the game. And it can happen that your special ability is to plant bananas. One of the scoring tiles that came out randomly was for having bananas, and you got a special artifact card that gave you extra points for bananas. And if that happens, just from a random setup at the start of the game, you already have a big advantage, because the thing that your faction or race is, very good at just happens to meet the scoring criteria. There are a number of house rules. Various people have played with house rules. The easiest one is to say, if a player is playing a particular faction that grows bananas, we are not going to have the banana scoring tile in the game. If it comes out, we're going to change it. That's a very common house rule that people use. The downside of playing on Board Game Arena is, unless it implements that house rule, you are playing the game with the default game, with the base rules. But if you take that away, the game would have probably been in my top 3 of the year. I think the game itself is absolutely fantastic, so I love it. Next question from Kenneth. In the Tea Garden video, you mentioned that you're starting to go off the standard Euro game thing, where there are random tracks with random bonuses on them. Yes, Kenneth, I did say that, and this has actually been something that's been on my mind for about 2 or 3 months now. And, I'm a Euro gamer. I love tracks. I love a game that has tracks, and you move a counter up those tracks, and as you move up those tracks, you get bonuses, right? That is a very common thing in Euro games. But what I'm particularly starting to notice more and more is, and I'm going to upset people here, I am going to say it's lazy design, where, I've got a track, and I'm going to call it, what should I call it? Let's call it an influence track, right? And thematically, it has nothing to do with influence whatsoever. And all of the things on that track are, if you land on this space, you gain a wood. If you land on this space, you're going to get 3 silver coins. If you land on this space, you're going to get 2 victory points. If you land on this space, you're going to get a stone. Why? Right? And some of my favourite games have this in there. And some of my favourite designers have games where this is a thing. But for me, I'm starting to get a little bored and a little jaded. And as I say, I feel that it is lazy game design. And somebody's probably going to point out, like, one of my favourite games of all time has this in there. And I will accept that. But having a track with just random bonuses on it, which make absolutely no thematic sense whatsoever, but they're just in there because, hey, let's say I'm designing a Euro game, so it's got to have a track. Let's give the track a name and let's move. Yeah. Very good example is, and it's on the table right here, right now, is Andromeda's Edge. Andromeda's Edge has 5 tracks in it, and I'm looking at them right now. And you move up those tracks, and when you reach certain spaces, it unlocks certain abilities or certain things. But it's not a problem in this game, because the things that it unlocks are actually thematically related. So I'm looking right now at an industry track. That is the industry track, which is all about your production. And as you move up that track, you get to build better spaceships. Great. I have no problem with that. So I don't have a problem with tracks with bonuses, as long as those bonuses are thematically relatable to what that track is supposed to be. There you go. Hopefully that has made sense. And I'm curious to know if anybody else agrees with me, or if anybody else thinks I'm talking nonsense. So if you're watching this video back, please leave me a comment and let me know how you feel about tracks in Euro games with random bonuses on. Next, Ray says, what do you think is the worst board game stereotype? Oh, now that's a very open-ended question, because there are a lot of stereotypes in the board game world. There is the classic board game stereotype of, uh-oh, I've bought another game, my wife's not going to be happy, which is, in some way, is sexist, because, women play games too. But it is still a common trope that, the man has gone out and bought something and it's going to take up space. From a personal point of view, that's kind of how it is here, only in a joking way. Vicky seriously doesn't mind the fact that I've taken over the whole house with board games. But I remember when we ran GridCon 2, somebody contacted me and said, Paul, I'm thinking of coming to GridCon 2, but do you have a bring and buy? And I said, yes, we are going to have a bring and buy, although we didn't at GridCon 2, so it was probably GridCon 1. And I said, well, why? And he said, because my wife won't let me come unless there is a bring and buy, and I guarantee that I'm going to sell at least 20 games. Right? That's a fact. That happened. So, this sort of thing is, it does happen that if you have a significant other and they are concerned about your growing games collection, especially if it starts growing into other rooms of the house, then that is a kind of a trope within the board game hobby. But, and I know a lot of people don't like that, but it is true. It does happen. It is out there. I'd love to answer the question more, but I'm not sure what other board game stereotypes there are, other than the classic, oh, it's a Euro game, so it has no theme. This really bugs me, because there are, believe it or not, there are some Euro games that do actually have theme. Now, I get it. The standard Euro game about moving cubes up tracks or converting one type of resource into another, a lot of them don't have any theme, but some of them do. And a lot of people think, oh, if it's a Euro game, it has no theme whatsoever. And if it's this American style Ameritrash game, whatever you want to call it, then it has loads of theme. No. Whether a game is thematic or not has, for me, no bearing on the style of game it is. I have played some of these, very random roll dice attack people, which actually don't have much theme whatsoever. It's just they've got lots of player conflict, lots of rolling of dice. Doesn't mean that they're thematic. Right, next question from Christoph. Am I planning on doing a non-board game related vacation in 2025? Yes, we have booked a holiday. We are going to Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt. And when are we going? March. The reason for this is we went on honeymoon last year. Was it last year? It's been one of those years. We went on honeymoon last year, and that holiday that we went on was the first holiday that we've had in about 10 years. And we said when we got back from honeymoon, we can't wait another 10 years to go on holiday. We need to go on holiday. Most normal people go on holiday at least once a year, maybe twice a year. And we just don't. And we kind of got out of the habit of it. And gaming rules was a big part of that. And me throwing myself into this new job has been a big part of that. But we said to ourselves when we got back from honeymoon, right, we need to make sure that we do get a holiday booked. And unfortunately, it then started to drag on and on and on. And in the end, we just made a decision and we said, look, let's go into the travel agents, let's look around and let's find something and let's book something. And we did. If we'd have spent another couple of weeks thinking, oh, actually, is this the right thing? Is this what we want to do? We would have ended up back in that, the zone of indecision again. And it would have dragged on and it would drag on and we still wouldn't have a holiday booked. So yes, we made a decision and we said, right, we're going to go to Sharm el Sheikh. Now, neither of us are beach people. We're not going to sit on a beach for a week and do nothing. We have gone somewhere that is specifically good for scuba diving and seeing lots of tropical fish. And I think we're going for a week. Is it a week or 8 days or something like that? So we'll probably do a couple of other things while we're there. But the idea is that we will go, we will chillax for a bit. Vicky will read a book. I will take some stuff to do as well. And we're going to go snorkeling and see some fish. So that is happening in March. But anyway, Christoph says, I'd love to play board games day in and day out, but I can guess some might need a break from time to time. Or is board gaming something you cannot see yourself not doing anytime soon? Yeah, the advantage that I've got is that I just want to play board games every day. I don't get burnt out on it. I don't feel the need to stop and have a break. Although this is now my job, it is still my hobby. I am still as passionate about it, if not more passionate about it than I ever was before. So I don't need a holiday in order to go away, recharge my batteries, and come back and enjoy board games again. Yeah, I'm fortunate in that way. I need a holiday because, well, Vicky needs a holiday, and it will do me good in a way to get away. Plus, as much as I like playing board games, I also want to go to other places and see other things, and I also want to go swimming with fishes again because that was really nice. Christoph says, I love what you're doing and wish you'd never stop. He's just watched my 70-minute video on how to play Civolution. Excellent. Yes. And I want to make more how to play videos. If I could make more how to play videos, I would. But they take a long time to create, and I have all of the other stuff going on as well. Next question from Mrs. Cat. I hope you've recovered from GridCon. I haven't. I was falling asleep about an hour ago. So yeah, we are recovering from GridCon, but we haven't recovered yet. After being in the board game world as passionate player for a few years, I have noticed something a little sad and disturbing, which is the number of females represented in the board game industry is abysmally small. I am really shocked that this is a male-dominated industry. There seem to be no female game creators, Elizabeth Hargrave being the one that comes to mind. There are some others as well, but Elizabeth Hargrave is one of the main ones. And there are very few YouTube/Patreon content creators. Now, Mrs. Cat says she's not a feminist banging on about the injustice of it all, but always thought that the female mind was more creative and thinky. And have absolutely no problem with men waving the flag for the board gaming world, but I also do hope that this is not a sexist/misogynist industry where females can't seem to get a foot in the door. So, there's a lot to unpick there. And what I will say to you is that as somebody who has been going to board game conventions for over 25 years, one of the things that I find great is the much, much higher percentage of women that go to board game events. Now, we've just come back from GridCon. What would you say, and if you are watching this video live and you were at GridCon, what do you think was the percentage of women who were at GridCon? Was it 25%? Was it 30%? Was it 40%? I'm thinking it's probably somewhere around 25-30%. Now, there are other conventions who have a slightly higher proportion, and the local games club that I go to regularly on a Thursday night is probably 50-50. I think the games club that I go to is about 50-50. 20 years ago, it wouldn't be anything like that. So I feel that there are much more women involved in the board gaming hobby and the board game community now than there were 20-25 years ago. But I absolutely agree with you that the industry still seems to be male dominated. Now, we do have some women game designers, but we don't have many. And I don't know why. Because women are, just as capable, if not more capable than men at doing this sort of thing. So I don't know why we don't have more female game designers. Artists. We do have some female artists out there, but again, not many. That's also male dominated. As far as YouTube goes, there are a number that I know, but again, it is still male dominated. But there are a number of females who do have YouTube's Patreon or anything else, but predominantly, I think it's still mostly men. So yes, that is where we are, but I think the industry side of it is the worst percentage, and I don't know why we have that. I don't know why we don't have more female designers. I wouldn't have thought that there would be some kind of barrier to entry, but I'm not the person to speak to. I don't know about that. Elizabeth Hargrave has probably spoken about this in some places, but yeah, not aware. Ian O'Toole is in the chat. Hi, Ian. Ian says there are a healthy number of women involved in creating artwork for games, but doesn't know about actual statistics. But he does know a bunch of them. Excellent, excellent. So that's good. But here's the thing, though. How many female board game artists can you name off the top of your head? Not Ian, anybody else. Whereas how many male board game artists can you name off the top of the head? Well, we've got Ian O'Toole, we've got Vincent Dutrait, we've got the Miko, we've got Andrew Bosley. Other board game artists, Michael Menzel. Again, all men. I personally, off the top of my head, and this is looking bad for me, but I can't name a single female artist for board games. Apart from, I think, the woman who does the stuff for Mind Clash Games, whose name begins with a V that I can't remember. So there we go. Let's have a look at Beth Sobel. Yes, sorry, I do know about Beth. Yeah, but it's interesting. It really is interesting, and I don't know why. Richard Breeze's, well, no, it's actually, yeah, so Richard Breeze's sister used to do all of the artwork for his games, but that is now done by Vicky Pull, who's Alan and Charlie's daughter. So yeah, she does all of the art for them. Apologies for that, I should have remembered. Anyway, moving on, and just before we'll do this last question, because this last question is an interesting one, and I don't actually understand what this question means. So I'm going to read it out, and hopefully you might be able to help me understand what this question is. So this is from Barry. Barry says, "Hi Paul, as a long-time listener, I have to say that your English is perfectly understandable for someone who is not a native speaker." Thank you very much for that. I've heard that before, and I think the reason for that is because I have lived in various parts of the UK, so that most of my accent has kind of worn off, and I have a relatively neutral accent, I think. So that bit's fine. But then Barry goes on to say, "Do I work with any Scottish colleagues who I recommend not to use Scottish accents in the rules or apps?" And that's the bit that I don't understand, Barry. So if you are here watching, or you could explain what the question means, do I work with any Scottish colleagues who I recommend not to use Scottish accents in the rules or apps? No, I don't think I do work with any Scottish colleagues. And he says, but rather to use appropriate iconography. So that's the bit of the question that I don't understand. Right, that's the end of all of the questions that I was asked in advance. So we're going to have a short break now. I'm going to have a glass of water, and we're going to talk about the contest. So every month I give away £50 worth of games vouchers to Games Law. Now, £25 of that comes from me personally, and £25 comes from Games Law itself. And you can win £50 worth of games vouchers from Games Law. All you need to do is click on the link, which is in the chat right now. It's also in the description of this video. And you need to fill in the form, and you could win £50 worth of vouchers. The secret word this month is Ice Pirates. This is the miniature from Andromeda's Edge. This is the Ice Pirates. We're going to be fighting against these on Friday night. So Ice Pirates is the secret word. If you are a patron supporter, then you get 2 entries into the hat instead of 1. And the winner for last month was Zara. Zara is not a patron supporter. Zara is somebody who watches my videos, entered the contest last month. So although there is a weighted bias towards patron supporters winning, because they are the people that fund the channel, the contest is open to everybody. So congratulations, Zara. I have spoken to you today, and you will be getting £50 worth of games vouchers from Games Law. And if you're not in the UK, that's absolutely fine. Games Law do ship to other places as well. So when we increased it from £25 to £50, it still means you can buy yourself a game and get it shipped over to you. And speaking of the patron supporters, again, a big thank you to all of you for funding the channel. This video is not sponsored in any way, and all of the advertising revenue goes to charity. So doing these actually cost me £25 every month. But I'm able to do these videos and lots of other content thanks to this Patreon. So if you want to support me directly, you can do so at patreon.com/gaming rules. The contest says it's closed. Oh, again? Right, let me just fix that. Oh, wait a minute, it's my turn in Terraforming Mars. No, I'll do that later. But I've got these cards that I want to play. Right, so what I do is I close the previous month's contest and then I copy the form. What I should do, I should copy the form and then close the contest. Right, bear with us a minute. The contest is going to be open. Contest is open now. Ice Pirates. Good luck. Off you go. Right, so no more questions from now on because we have enough questions to keep us going Where are we? Yeah, we have enough questions to keep us going till the end of the show. So these are questions which have come in since we went live today. And the first one is from Frank. Let's talk about GridCon. Compared to last year, did you have more stress organising GridCon, and how much did we raise through the raffle? So, did we have more stress organising GridCon? Yes and no. The actual organisation of the event was busy. There was a lot to do, but I wouldn't have said it was stressful because we have a process that we follow. We have a number of tasks that we need to perform, and a lot of it is just going through those tasks. The stressful part of it was organising the charity raffle, which unfortunately this year was a combination of I'd left it a little late to contact some of the publishers, but also some of the publishers didn't send the games with enough time for them to get here. So it was actually really stressful because we'd organised the raffle into lots, and then one of the packages wasn't sent when they said it was going to be sent, and it wasn't going to be here in time. That was actually, it caused a lot of problems. And in fact, some of the packages didn't arrive in time whatsoever. So right now I have 2 boxes of games downstairs, which are probably going to be included in next year's raffle. But we did manage to raise a huge amount of money. And in fact, if I can find a picture, let me just get this picture on screen. If I can find it, where did I put it? I put it on my desktop. Where's my desktop? Desktop. Here it is. And here is the picture. Right, okay, so I'm going to put picture on screen now. Oh, it's too big. Let's just shrink that down a bit. There we go. Well, yeah, I'm going to have to shrink this down a bit more. Bear with us a minute. This picture's... Oops. Sorry, I've just moved the chat. This picture is going to appear slowly but surely. I've no other way of resizing it other than keep dragging it across. God, this is entertaining watching, isn't it? Here we go. We are getting there. This is a picture of all of the raffle prizes from the raffle that we ran at GridCon 5, which took months to organise. But there you go. And if I just put that above for a minute, there you go. So they are all of the pictures, and we raised, as you can see, £6,710, which is being split evenly between those 3 charities. So yeah, a huge thank you to all of the publishers that contributed and donated prizes. A lot of these are old games from my collection, which I decided I didn't want anymore as well. But yeah, that's a tremendous amount of money. And just for those of you that are watching this and think, oh yeah, that's a lot of money. That was 300 people. We only have 300 people at GridCon, and the generosity of people is quite extraordinary. But we've got Voidfall in there. We've got Frosthaven in there. You know, we've got... what else have we got? We've got Enormity from Into the Unknown. We've got 2 copies of Castles of Burgundy Special Edition. We had approximately £6,500 worth of games. So yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal. And thank you to everybody involved in that and making that happen. Right. So was that it from Frank? That was it. Next question from Jesse. How long into a first play of a game does it take you to realise if you like, love or dislike it? Oh, that is a good question. Probably about an hour to an hour and a half. But I'm not always right. I'm not always right with my initial impressions. And I will be absolutely honest with you here. I learned how to play Andromeda's Edge last night. Andromeda's Edge has dice for combat. In the first hour of the game, I lost every single combat and all of my ships got destroyed, even though the odds were in my favour. But lucky dice rolls meant that I lost all of my ships. And after an hour into the game, I was thinking, why does everybody like this game? Why are people saying that this is the best game of the year? I'm missing something. So I was missing something, and it's the fact that losing your ships and combat is not a big part of the game, actually. And there are compensations for losing your ships, and you get them back anyway whenever you do a reset. So it isn't the big problem that I thought it was. But yes, an hour into the playthrough last night, I was thinking, what is going on here. Why? I mean, yeah, what happened was unusual, but it actually didn't have that much of an impact on the game. And I've spoken today to somebody who is very, very good at the game and knows the game very well, the designer and the publisher, and they've said, yeah, you need to give it a bit of time because there are things that you can do. You just will learn them the more you play it. So yeah, but most of the time, to be honest, there are so many games that I have played recently where within half an hour to an hour, I'm like, oh, this game's great. This game's really, really good. And yes, sometimes you end up being a little bit wrong, and you get to the end of the game and then you do final scoring and it says, oh, and if it's a Tuesday, the player called Paul wins. And you're like, well, what's this nonsense? But most of the time I do get a good feel about it fairly early on. Next question from the Sweeples. What is the most English thing that you can say that someone overhears you will assume you're British? Oh, what is the most English thing that you could say so that if somebody overhears you, they would know you're British? Sorry? I mean, being a British person means that if you're walking down the street, this is, right, how to be a British person. You're walking down the street, somebody walks into you, and you say sorry. That is number one thing for being British. The number two thing on how to be British is if you see somebody stood still, then clearly it's a queue, so you stand behind them. And that's how queues start. I think that's probably about it, really. Yeah, they're the two things. If you do that, you're an honorary British person. So yeah, I think if you just go round saying sorry all of the time for everything, even if it's not your fault. Oh, it's raining today. Oh, I'm sorry. It's like it actually bugs me a little bit when people say sorry when it's not their fault. But that is traditionally a British thing. Good question. I like that. Simon says, have you played all of the decks in Captain's Chair yet? No, I've played one of them. I have played the Picard deck. But I tell you what, if I was a little bit more awake this afternoon, I actually thought to myself, so this morning we did lots of tidying and we did lots of admin and things like that. And this afternoon, Vicky had a bit of a lie down and I thought, right, I'm not tied enough. What should I do? Should I do some more tidying? Because trust me, I've got days and days of tidying to do. And I actually thought, oh, maybe I'll learn one of the other Captain's Chair decks. I'm loving Captain's Chair, but I have only played one of the Captains. So no, I've only played Picard. And seeing Captain's Chair being played at GridCon, we ran a little tournament and there were loads of games. I think there was 14-7. There was about 20 games of Captain's Chair that went on over GridCon. It was fantastic to see. And I saw other captains being played. And I was like, oh, this looks cool. And this captain's doing this. And this one's doing this. It's really given me more of a desire to play them, even though it was already quite strong. Next question from Dom. When I watch on Patreon, I can't find how to expand the screen fully on your tablet. Ah, right. So here's the thing that I never do. And this is a change that the Patreon app made about a year or two ago. But what happens is when I make a post to Patreon and I say, I've got a video going live, and you get that notification on Patreon, you can actually watch it through Patreon. I never do that because you're not watching it on YouTube. So if it's a live stream, you can. You can be watching it through the Patreon app, but you can't make it full screen. You can't join in the chat or anything else. I would go so far as say, never do that and always click on the button that says open in YouTube, because then you're watching it on YouTube. You can join in with the chat. You can make it full screen. You can do all of that stuff. So yes, the way that the Patreon system works is that if you send out a video, then it embeds that video into Patreon. I mean, it's good in a way that if you're on the Patreon website and you see a video and you click play, it plays it. It's embedded into the page without it having to go elsewhere. But I never watch any videos through Patreon. I always go to YouTube and watch it from there. Next question from Ragura. I'm interested in creating a how to play video as an experiment. How do you record and sync your audio and video? Do you read from a script over the video material afterwards? If I was to explain all of my processes on how I create a how to play video, I'd be here for about half an hour. But I will answer your questions. First of all, yes, I script everything. I literally, not even bullet points, everything. Every single word that I say in a how to play video is scripted. I put it on a teleprompter, which I attach to the camera there. And then what I do is I record on the camera, but the microphone is separate. So the microphone is here above my head. You can't see it because it's off camera, but the video is there. And how do I sync it together? It's actually quite simple, because when I'm recording video on the camera, I am also recording audio. So then what I do is I load both the clips into Premiere Pro. So I have one clip, which is video and audio. Then I load the other clip, which is just audio, and I simply sync them up. There are tools to do it automatically, but what I do is I just press play and I move it around a fraction of a second at a time until it's absolutely perfectly in sync. Then what I do is I delete the audio from the video clip and I join the audio from the microphone to the video so that I end up with just one video and one audio, and then I edit that together. So yes, I am reading from a script while looking at the camera, and then that gets all edited. But all of the audio is done in one go. It's the very, very last thing that I do is that I record all of the audio for the video, and I try and record all of the audio at the same time, so that it sounds consistent. So if you've watched any of my how to play videos, then all of those scenes that you see where I'm not on camera, that audio is not recorded at the time. It's actually recorded at the very, very end of the process. Next question from John. Do you still get the opportunity to play Arkham Horror, the living card game? The answer to that is no. If I did, then the chances are it would be on the channel. Most of the games that I play are on the channel. The only games that I play that aren't on the channel are the Agamonia campaign that I'm playing with Vicky, the Tainted Grail campaign that I'm playing with Vicky, and when I go to the local club on a Thursday night. Other than that, pretty much everything that I play is on the channel. So no, I don't. I think I love the Arkham Horror LCG. Absolutely love the game. But again, going back to what I said at the very start, there just isn't enough time to play all of the games. What are my thoughts on the spoilers so far about the Drowned City and Fantasy Flight's statement that it will change the Arkham landscape forever? I know nothing about those because I'm 2 sets behind. I haven't even played Scarlet Keys yet, and I haven't played the Feast of Hemlock Vale yet. So I am not keeping up to date with the game. I do love the game and I do want to play it more. Maybe I should make myself a vow that I will play one of the campaigns next year. But again, it's just a matter of time. Next question from Martin. What are your opinion on games with cascading failure, such as Robinson Crusoe, Final Girl, or Halls of Hegra? That is a really good question, Martin, and I'm going to be honest with you here. I don't like them. There you go. It is as simple as that. Now, when you say cascading failure, I've not heard that term before, so I'm going to assume that it means what I think it means, which is something goes wrong, which means you then have a penalty, which means then there is more chance of something else going wrong, and it's just a cycle to eternal doom. And we found this when we played the first Tainted Grail campaign until we eventually house ruled it. So it's very, very realistic. Don't get me wrong, these games are realistic. But the first Tainted Grail campaign, with the original rules that were printed, were that your energy that you have each day is based on your health, which makes absolute thematic sense. It is very realistic. If I've broken my leg and I've got a big gash in my chest and I'm bleeding and I've got concussion, I'm not going to have as much energy as I normally have if I'm right. So thematically, that works. However, when you're playing a game and you're like, okay, I've taken 3 points of damage. That means I've only got 4 energy the next day instead of 6. Right. We're out of food, but I've now only got 4 energy to be able to collect food. So we'll go there. Oh, we've now got in a fight with the giant rabbit. Oh, I've taken 2 more points of damage. I've only got 2 health. Right. I've now only got 2 energy. Well, that 2 energy is now not enough to get any food. So I'm not going to be able to eat, so I can't eat. And what happens when you don't eat? I'm going to lose a health. So then the next day, I've only got 1 energy. I'm badly wounded, and I don't have the energy to be able to go and get the food. And you end up in the... Now, again, that is very realistic. But in a game, I'm not keen on that. So all of those games that you've mentioned, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Robinson Crusoe. I mean, I've not played Final Girl. I don't think I ever want to play Final Girl. And Halls of Pegra, whilst very thematic games, I personally, Cascading Failure, not so good. The closest that I've come to that in a game which I do really enjoy is Frostpunk. And it can happen in Frostpunk. But at the point it happens, once you realise it, I guess you probably stop playing. But then there's the chance of, oh, well, what happens if we carried on playing? What happens if by some miracle we manage to succeed? But yeah, so I guess Frostpunk has that as well. It has Cascading Failure. But I love Frostpunk. So there we go. Next question from Jackie. If you could only play one game for the rest of your life, what would it be? That's not a fair question, Jackie. That is really not fair. It would probably have to be Mage Knight because that is my number one game. If you're really going to limit me for one game the rest of my life, it probably should be my favourite game, which would be Mage Knight, because I can play it competitively, I can play it solo, I can play it cooperatively. There's loads of different scenarios. There's a huge amount of replayability. It's the ultimate puzzle-solving game. So, yeah, it would be Mage Knight. Stevie wants more GridCon stories. Can you tell us about one planned and one unplanned thing that went well? So I'll tell you a funny story. This was unplanned, but a number of members from the Whose Turn Is It Anyway podcast were getting out Micro Macro Crime City. We always have one of the Micro Macro games in the games library because I think they're really, really good fun games, and they're also good for a convention. And they got one of them out because another member, I think JP, had played the game with his kids and said it was really good. So a number of the other ones got this game out and they set the map up. And I went over and I said, oh, have you played it before? And they said, no. So I showed them basically how to play it and recommended that they play the advanced mode. And then I was like, right, so you need to pick a case. And what I did is I grabbed all of the envelopes that were in the box and I found a case and I said, right, here's a case. I've picked this one for you. And here's what you do. You have a look at the first card and then you try to find the thing that it's talking about. So, somebody's been killed in a florist's. Right. You need to find the florist on the map and find the person who's been killed and then work backwards and try and find out who did it. And they said, okay, thanks very much. Leave it with us. And I left them to it. 20 minutes later, they'd rage quit the game and put it away. And they said, we stared at the map for like 15 minutes and none of us could find anything at all. And I thought, that's unusual because this is a game that you can play with your family. It's not that hard. Anyway, Micro Macro Crime City, there are 4 boxes. So over the course of 4 years, they released 4 boxes. And then last year, when they released box number 4, they also released, they also released a set of epic cases which required all 4 maps at the same time. And I'd accidentally put those epic cases in the box that I'd taken to GridCon, and then I accidentally gave them one of the epic cases to play. So I hope they see the funny side of it. 2 of them have unfriended me on Facebook, so maybe not. But yeah, I hope they can laugh at it, but I basically wasted 15 minutes of their lives with them looking for something on a map which did not exist. So that's a funny story about something that was definitely not planned. A story about something that was planned. I think the Captain's Chair tournament, I think went really well. And we did an escape room thing on the Friday night as well that we didn't, we coordinated it. We got a third party company to come in. Tickets were sold directly to them. We didn't make any money out of it, but I think everybody who played that really enjoyed it, and there was a lot of good things that came out of it. And the other thing that came out of it is people were put together into teams, so people kind of got to know each other as well, and that was really nice. So yeah, the Captain's Share tournament, the escape room game thing that happened on the Friday night were planned, and I think they went very well. Next question from Stephen. Where are you? I am currently in my old studio in my house. That's probably not what you wanted to know. I live in a town called Columpton in the southwest of England. Am I taking the journey to PAX Unplugged? I am not. I will not be going to PAX Unplugged. It's a long way to go, and it will take me quite a while for my body and brain to recover from GridCon. So, yes. Next question from Board Gaming Ramblings. What is your top Uwe Rosenberg game, and why is it a feast for Odin? I think they're putting words into my mouth, but at the moment, Feast for Odin is my favourite Uwe Rosenberg game. I just enjoy that so much. But I do have Fields of Arla over there. Thank you, Gary, for that, which I haven't played. I haven't played that yet. I have played Fields of Arla about 4 times in the past. I now have my own copy of it. But I think Feast for Odin is, with the Norwegians expansion, it is my favourite Uwe Rosenberg game. So once I start playing Fields of Arla again, we'll see how I feel about it. But yeah, Feast for Odin is my favourite. Next question from D. If you could choose one franchise that doesn't have a board game yet, which one would it be? Now, we quite often get asked, which IP would you like to see more board games about? And pretty much everything has been done. But let's try and think of a franchise that doesn't have a board game. I mean, isn't there a board game for pretty much everything? I mean, let's think of books that we like, TV shows that we like, that haven't had a board game. Let's move this to the Guild, because I can't think of one. So, over on the Guild, if Chrissy's watching, Chrissy is watching, we're going to put this question over to the Guild. So Chrissy is going to put a thread on the Guild. The Guild is 2258, and I'd like you all to head on over there in about 5 or 10 minutes time and take part in this. We are looking for an IP or a franchise that hasn't had a board game. Now, I'll leave it up to your judgment as to whether you think a card game is the same, because I can see Babylon 5 being mentioned in the chat. Babylon 5 did have a card game. There is also a miniatures game, but I don't believe Babylon 5 had an actual board game. So I will let you decide as to whether a card game or a miniature game version is okay, or you actually want a pure board game. I can't. Oh, Red Dwarf. There you go. That's a good one, Rick. Now, also, we need to say that some cheesy board game that was sold at Christmas one year in W.H. Smith's doesn't count, right? We're talking about a proper game, not a nonsense one. But yeah, there will be a thread over on the Guild. So if you're watching this video live, it will be there in 5 or 10 minutes. Or if you're watching this video back later, or if you're listening to this as a podcast, then head on over there and you will find other people's suggestions. We already know what Rick's suggestion is, which is Red Dwarf. Next question from me. Hey, what would you recommend if you really like Lost Ruins of Arnak, but you want to try something else similar? I really enjoy the tightness in the resource management and the clever card play. Dune Imperium. Oh, but you didn't like that as they're... didn't think they're at all alike. Okay, I think they are. They are both worker placement deck building games. Mechanically, they are similar. Resources are very tight in both of those games, but Dune Imperium does have conflict between the players. But other than that, mechanically, Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak are very similar. So I'm not sure what else to suggest that is similar to Lost Ruins of Arnak, because Dune Imperium is the closest one that's to it. The other one, which also combines worker placement and deck building together, was Endless Winter, but the resources in that tend to not be that tight. One of the common criticisms with Endless Winter is that it's too easy to do everything in the game. There's too many ways of getting all of the resources. There are some house rules that fix that, to reduce that. But yeah, I would have to say Dune Imperium as well. Next question from Compy. Having several grid cons behind you, is it getting easier each year? Yes. Yes and no. The tiredness and the exhaustion isn't getting easier, but the actual process that we have for all of the stuff that we need to do in advance, we have Google Sheets, we have lists, we have everything, all of the stuff that happens at the event. People have said to us that it runs like a well-oiled machine, and that's because of the amount of time and effort that we put into literally planning tick lists and everything else. To see it happening is great. But what surprises us every year about GridCon? I'm not sure anything surprises us. It's just, yeah. I don't think there is a surprise. There's lots of good things that happen at GridCon, and I'm always happy about those things that happen, but it's not a surprise as such. So yeah, I don't think anything does surprise us at GridCon. Vicky's typing something in the chat. Oh, how far people are willing to... Yeah, okay, that is a surprise, even though it did happen last year, is the people who travel from literally halfway around the world to come to a small hotel in the southwest of England for a 300-person convention. But then again, Vital Lacerda and David Turksey are there. So, maybe they came to see them rather than us. No, they came to see us. Definitely us. Right, next question from Jackie. How is the house expansion coming along? Do you think it will be finished soon? Apparently, they'll be finished this Friday. I mean, to be fair, the inside is done, right? The inside is done, apart from a couple of little small snagging issues. This week, they are outside doing the back garden because we extended the ground floor a bit as well. So they're having to do a bit of landscape gardening at the back. That's actually happening... Well, right now, they're working late tonight. They've gone and got some lights, and they're working at it right now. So, yeah, we're hoping that it will be done in the next week or two. Next question from Brian. Do you think there are too many buildings in Black Forest? The row and the colour gives you an idea, but he had to get up when it's not your turn to get the cost and the exact effect. I don't think there are too many buildings in Black Forest, but I get what you're saying. I like the fact that there's so many buildings. What I would have probably done is I would have probably had some buildings that you don't need for your first game. I mean, to be fair, you don't need half of them. So you could just have a house rule where you remove 10 of the buildings so that there's just simply less buildings for people to choose from. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's like 21 there, and then there's loads. There's like 30 or 40 buildings that you have to build from. And when you first start playing Black Forest, you're like, okay, I can build a building. Which one? Well, any of these? And you're like, what? There's loads of them. I don't think there's too many, because I think that many means that there's a wide variety of options in the game, but it can be overwhelming when you first start playing it. Next question from Marcus. Have I tried the Jaffa Cake cookies yet, and what did you think of them? I haven't, Marcus, but thank you very much for those. We came back from GridCon with enough treats to keep us going for many, many, many months. The only ones that I've started are the raspberry flavoured Jaffa Cakes, because I opened them at the event, and therefore I want to finish them first. So, yeah, but all of the other ones, and thank you very much to everybody who brought us treats. We have eaten some of the ones from Louisa, because they were freshly baked. Anything that was freshly baked, like the gifts that Elaine gave us, and the ones from Louisa, they take priority. But anything that was sealed in a package, we will get through to them at some point. But yeah, there was quite a lot. So yeah, thank you very much for them. Next question from Carl. Can you use your influence on Alexander Pfister to create Great Western Chicken, including egg laying as well as selling chicken? But I tell you what, I will, just for you, Carl, I will send him that as an email tonight. I will request, one of my supporters has asked if you can create a board game called Great Western Chicken, which includes egg laying and selling chicken burgers. I don't know. The Great Western Trail franchise might be reaching out. Next question from Mihai. Are you planning to do a top 50 of all time or a top 10 of all time anytime soon? No, I'm not planning either of those. I did 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? And these are on my channel if you want to go and watch them. I did 3 live streams between Christmas and New Year where I went through all of my collection, and I used the Pub Meeple ranking system, and I rated every single game in my collection. Those videos are on my channel now if you want to go and watch them. They are from a couple of years ago. It's called something like Paul Rates Every Game in His Collection, part 1, 2, and 3. And if you go to the end of part 3, you will see my top 10 games at the time. It would be different if I did it now. I'm not planning to do another one anytime soon, but I will probably aim to redo something similar to that next year. But I'm not going to do... I mean, I literally did my entire collection, including games which I've never played and games which I think are absolutely awful. If I did it again, I would filter my collection first into only the good games, and then I would rate them. What I am planning to do at some point between now and the end of the year is I am planning to do my top 10 games of 2023, which is a year after everybody else has done them. But I'm going to be doing it a bit different. I am going to be doing that instead of just a normal video, which normally takes me about 2 days to do. I'm going to do that as a live stream. So, and that might be between Christmas and New Year. That's kind of when I'm thinking of doing it. But it will be a live stream of me going through every single game from 2023 that I have played, and I will be using the Pub Meeple system to rate them. It won't take that long because it's probably only about 30 different games or something like that. But yeah, I'm planning to do that this year. Next question from Matt. Is Paul doing a solo playthrough of Revenant? I'm not. That was Derek's question, apparently. Okay, so Derek asked the question, but Matt's asked it. No, I don't have any plans to do a solo playthrough of Revenant. In fact, I don't think the solo mode has been finalised yet. Certainly in the rulebook that they sent me to do the multiplayer game, there was no mention in there of a solo mode. So I think there is going to be a solo mode, but either it's still in development or anything like that. But no, I'm not sure how that would work, but I'm sure the clever people will be able to work that out. Next question from Matt. Were you surprised at how well your tastes matched with Mike Kelly of One Stop Co-op Shop? Yes. So for those of you that don't know, Mike Kelly, fellow content creator, he is part of the One Stop Co-op Shop YouTube channel. And recently what Mike did is he did a really interesting video where he contacted a number of other content creators, including me, and he got them to send him their top 10 games of all time. And then he compared that list with his list. And I came out, I think I was second. I was either second or third, and the only people that beat me were the other people that do One Stop Co-op Shop with Mike. So I was surprised at that. But Mike plays more of the solo campaign games. So there were a number of games on Mike's list, which I haven't even gone anywhere near. Mike plays less of the Euros than I do, but for the Euros that he does play, we were almost a perfect match, I think. There was only a couple of games which I said, oh, this is a top 10 game of all time, and Mike was like, I don't like that one. But yeah, lots of the other ones so yeah, I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I like Mike and I get on with him and I watch quite a few of Mike's videos, but based on the games he normally covers, yeah, I was surprised that there were as many matches as there were. And to be fair, because I couldn't whittle my top 10 into top 10, I gave him 15. And out of those 15, he picked 10 at random. He didn't even put Mage Knight. I said, look, you can pick 10 at random, but if you don't put Mage Knight on there, we're over. And he didn't put Mage Knight on there. So, yeah. Anyway. Next, Paranoid Custodian. I am new to the channel. Thank you for joining. Just wanted to say thanks for your work. You were one of those who convinced you to get too many bones. Okay. Do you ever see yourself playing it online again, or is the itch over? The itch is over. I can't see myself ever playing Too Many Bones again. And the reason for that is I personally feel that Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era is better by quite a way. Now, I know people and I am friends with people who are Too Many Bones fans. I have spoken to them. They have played Elder Scrolls. They like Elder Scrolls, but they said that for them, there is still a place in their collection for Too Many Bones. For me, it's a little sad to think that that game over there in the trove chest with all of that stuff might never get played again. But Elder Scrolls is so good. If I ever have 4 or 5 hours free, I would always choose to play Elder Scrolls instead. Now, I get it that with Too Many Bones, you can play a complete game in 4 or 5 hours and then it's done. And with Elder Scrolls, in that same amount of time, you can only play 1 session. But that 1 session to me still feels like a complete game. The fact is, you can then save that game and then you can play another session where the characters improve. There's more of a grand epic feeling for me because it takes place over a longer period of time. And the character progression is just so much more varied. So yeah, it is a bit sad, but Elder Scrolls for me is a far better game. Next one, Painting with Martin. Hi, Martin. Will I do a playthrough of Inferno or Age of Comics? I have absolutely no plans to cover either of those games because I don't own those games. I don't know anybody that owns those games. And as I mentioned earlier, there just isn't the time to cover those games. I have heard good things about both of them. And if I had 1,000 hours a week, those are two games that I would be contacting the publisher about because, yeah, I've heard good things about them. But at the moment, no plans to cover them. And the reality is that they're not going to get covered. Unless, of course, the designer of Inferno contacts me and says, Paul, I'd like you to do a playthrough of Inferno on the channel. At which point I will have to say, well, if you're happy to wait till the summer of next year, and he might say, well, and that we're going to be going back to Kickstarter for another reprint and an expansion. Yes, at that point it might happen. But at the moment, no plans to do it. Jackie is asking, do I think I will get to cover Galaxy Postman on the channel? Have you managed to look at it from getting back from Essen? So here's the thing. Galaxy Postman is one of the games that I brought back from Essen Spiel. And for those of you that don't know, when I came back from Essen, I put a poll up on my Patreon page. So if you are a Patreon supporter of mine at producer level or higher, you have had the opportunity to vote on all of the games that I brought back and the order in which you wanted to see them. And the ones that got the most votes were, I'm going to pull the list up because I'm going to forget. So give me a moment. Patreon.com. It was Daitoshi, which I've covered. It was Tea Garden, which I've covered. What else was it? What have I covered in the last few weeks that wasn't sponsored? I'm gonna scroll down on the list because it was a few weeks ago that I posted about this. Almost there. I should save this somewhere because the poll is still open. So if you are one of my Patreon supporters at producer level or higher, or if you're a new supporter, go and find it. You can still vote. The idea was that I would just leave it open and people could keep voting. It was posted to the Patreon page on October the 8th. So October the 8th, Daitoshi had the most votes, so I've covered that one. Beyond the Horizon, which I've covered. Anno 1800 with the expansion, which I'm going to be covering next. What else? Tea Garden, which I've covered. Menefa, Saltfjord. Right, so Saltfjord has been covered. Menefa has been covered. So if I was to go with the votes, the next one that I should cover, which will probably be week after next, is Anno 1800 with the expansion. Then after that, the one with the next most votes is Stevens, that had 64 votes. But let me tell you where is it? Galaxy Postman. Where's Galaxy Postman? Galaxy Postman had 52 votes. So there are, Stevens is ahead of it. Pirates of Maracaibo with the expansion actually has 78 votes. So that's ahead of it. Stress Botics is 53 votes. So there's 3 games ahead of it on the voting system. So what that means is I hope that I will get a chance to cover it this year. The plan was that I'm going to take 1 day a week off work from my paid job and get through all of these. However, with recovering from GridCon this week, I'm not going to be able to do it this week, and I might not be able to do it next week. But starting the week after, I want to get back to it. However, the designer of Galaxy Postman contacted me 2 days ago and said, we've just gone back on Kickstarter with a reprint campaign. And I replied to him and said, why didn't you tell me? Because if he'd have told me, I would have moved it up the queue and I would have made it happen. I would have arranged something for next week because I do want to cover this game. So to answer your question, no, I haven't done anything with it. I haven't looked at the rulebook or anything like that. It was in the GridCon library and it was played. And I think the people who played it enjoyed it. But I do want to cover it. And I've gone back to the designer yesterday and I've said, when is your campaign finishing? Because I will try. I will basically move it up the queue. My Patreon supporters want to see it. And I will try to move it up the queue so that I get a playthrough of it done during the campaign. But that depends on when the campaign ends and when I'm able to fit it in. So yeah, Galaxy Postman, if you're interested in it, it looks cool. It's a pick up and deliver, well, sort of. And it's on Kickstarter right now. Right, next question from John. Are there any games you would not recommend by Stefan Feld? Well, Stefan Feld is one of my favourite designers, and I do love most of his games, but not all of them. So let's just look up which, if I can spell it. Right, which Stefan Feld game would you not recommend? And this is an open question as well. Anybody in the chat or anybody watching this video back, name a Stefan Feld game that you would not recommend. For me, let me just have a look. Wow, Aquasphere was 10 years ago. Gosh. Not Aquasphere. Aquasphere is good. So, going back. Rum and Pirates, I've never played, but I haven't heard great things about Rum and Pirates. There's a weird game called It Happens that Chrissy actually brought to GridCon, which I've never played, but it doesn't look very good. Looking down the list. That's good. Jorvik. I didn't like Jorvik. I really wanted to like Jorvik, but I didn't like Jorvik. That's good. That I've not played. That's good. That's very good. That's good. Yeah, most of these are good. So the only ones, Rum and Pirates, which I've never played, but I've not heard good things. It Happens, which I've never played, but not heard good things. And yeah, for me, Jorvik. I didn't get on with Jorvik, and I also didn't get on with the Oracle of Delphi. But I know other people have said Oracle of Delphi is really good. It's nice that lots of people have different opinions about his games. But anyway, that's that one. Finally, Stevie says, if someone came to visit and brought Arcs, Food Chain Magnate, or other games that you are skeptical of, would you be up for it? And the answer is no. Honestly, really honestly, if somebody said, Paul, I'm going to come round and I'm going to visit you for the weekend and I'm going to bring with me Arcs, Food Chain Magnate, Root, Arkwright. There you go, that'll do. And we're going to play one of them. I will say, please don't come round. I would say, you are welcome to come round, but can we play such and such a game instead? So yeah, I wouldn't be up for it. And again, this boils down to the thing that I say multiple times every video is time is limited. And what we choose to do with that time is down to us. And I want to spend that time doing the things that I want to do. 20 years ago, I would have said, oh yeah, let's try everything. But now I have to be more selective. Right, Painting with Martin says, you sometimes talk about your day job. I'm guessing that it is not editing rule books. Is it okay to ask what you work with? My day job is this. And yeah, for those people who don't know, I occasionally joke about my day job. I don't do rulebook writing anymore. I really don't do rulebook editing anymore. I do a little bit of rulebook consultancy. Rulebook consultancy is probably 5% of my work. Nothing more than that. But my day job is videos, is creating the videos, either the how to play videos or the tutorial and play through videos or organizing GridCon or all of that sort of stuff. That is my day job. So when I say I'm taking a day a week off my day job, what I mean is I am not starting the filming of Galactic Cruise, which is the next how to play video that I'm doing. I'm going to take a day a week off that, a day a week from that in order to do playthrough videos. But yeah, creating videos is pretty much my full-time job. And yeah, I don't have any other side job on the side. Rick is asking, shall I start Sleeping Gods or Vagrant Story tonight? Oh, sorry, Vagrant Song. I don't know. I've heard Sleeping Gods is very good. I've not heard that much about Vagrant Song. So feel free, people in the chat, tell Rick what he should play tonight. Either Sleeping Gods or Vagrant Song. The Sweeple says, do you think that Unconscious Mind is a race to the 7 gold cards? Oh, in a way, yes. So Unconscious Mind has these 7 goal cards that come out, and each one has a requirement on them, and there is a really good benefit for doing them. And it is a race to get to them. I think it is a big part of the game. Now, I might be wrong on this, but because the things that you need to do to get those goals is something that you're trying to do anyway, I think you probably need to focus on them, and you need to get them. I know one of the goals is actually quite easy compared to the other 6. One of them is quite easy to get, and one of them is really hard to get. The other 5 seem to be about right. But yeah, I do think that getting those goals is a big part of the game. Matt is asking, have I barricaded myself in the GridCon suite? No. Oh, in the picture. Oh, the background picture. Yeah, that picture in the background, that is the GridCon. That is the main room of GridCon on the Saturday morning. Yes, Saturday morning before everybody came in, I took a photo of the room. So yeah, what you see in the background is the main gaming room at GridCon. Twilight Scuttle is asking, what percentage of your house is occupied by board games and board game related items? Well, I mean, Vicky will say it's a lot, but everything, 100%. 100% of the house is occupied. No, I have too many games. I am slowly trying to get rid of some games and reduce the number that I've got. But at the moment, because we're having the extension built, we lost a lot of storage area, and we're having to reorganize things and move things around. And yeah, but we do have a number of rooms with board game stuff in. Vicky's saying every room has something. The downstairs toilet does not have something in it yet. I'm going to put this Ice Pirates on the toilet downstairs. The front room currently has my painting stuff in it, because at some point I'm going to get back to painting. I haven't painted for about 2 months, but my painting stuff is in the front room. The kitchen has a board game on the table at the moment because it arrived. The dining room still has some board games on the table. The hallway is filled with board games. This room is filled with board games. Right. There's none in the bedroom. I don't think there's any board games in the bedroom. Or is Marvel Champions on the floor? Yeah, Marvel Champions on the floor. But that's only because I haven't moved it to there. There's a lot. There's too many, and yeah, I do need to get rid of some. Peter is asking, which game is the most thematic, Flamme Rouge or Heat Pedal to the Metal? For me, Flamme Rouge. I personally feel that Flamme Rouge is the more thematic game. I love the way that your cards that you play are one use only, and that they represent the fact that your cyclist is getting more and more tired, as the race goes on, and that as a cyclist in the Tour de France, you have to manage when you push, when you cycle fast and when you cycle slow. And I think that theme comes through a lot more in Flamme Rouge. Heat is a different game, some similar mechanisms, but and I do like the fact that it uses the heat cards, but what they have done is they have abstracted damage to the engine and damage to the tyres all as one thing, as the heat cards, which represent you exceeding the speed of a corner and you're wearing out your tyres and also pushing your engine. They've consolidated those two things together and abstracted it into one single thing. Also, racing games normally have chances of people hitting each other and things like that, and that doesn't happen in Heat. So for me, Flamme Rouge is the more thematic of the two games. Good question. Adrian, what happens if you zip your jumper all the way up? I don't know, I never do. Oh, well, there you go. That's what happens if you zip your jumper all the way up. So why would you ever do this? I guess you'd do that. Would you do that, or would you do that? I'm going to walk around like this now. I mean, who needs masks? If COVID happens again, I'm sorted. Yeah, there you go. That's what happens. And that's probably why I don't do it. I guess it's not designed to be zipped up all the way, but maybe it is. Oh, did you see the photo that Malcolm posted on WhatsApp the other day? He's got a jumper exactly like this. Board game physics. How is life as a husband? It's not dissimilar to what it was beforehand, because we'd lived together for 17 years, something like that. So yeah, it's not dissimilar, but I'm glad we did it. I can't remember if I said no more questions. Yes, I did say no more questions, but we have 2 left. Final 2 questions are, first one from Ali. What happened to the Don't Starve Kickstarter? Was it not supposed to be a Q3 title, and how exciting is it? Very good question, because at GridCon, I ran a demo of the Don't Starve board game. It was supposed to be a Q3 Kickstarter, but here's the thing. And I don't want to knock any publisher here, because I'm going to mention 2 publishers now, both of whom are clients and both of whom do really great games. but they do them differently. So the first one is Awaken Realms. Now, Awaken Realms are one of my clients, and they do some really great games. But when Awaken Realms go to Kickstarter, and they did this with Tainted Grail, the original, ISS Vanguard, Great Wall, and they've probably done it with some others as well. The game is still in development, and they go to Kickstarter and they say, look, this is the game that we're going to make. It's probably going to change, but this is the game. And then they continue developing it, and they make the game better. I don't think there's any question for me that they spend their development time making the game better, but then the disadvantage is the game comes out and people are like, well, that's not what we backed. We backed it because it was going to contain 52 tokens, and now it only contains 48 tokens. I'm joking, but there are some people that have said, this isn't what I backed, I want a refund, right? So there's the danger. It doesn't matter the fact that they've made a better game. People backed this, and they're now not getting that, right? That's what Awaken Realms have done in the past. Glass Cannon Unplugged, the people who made Frostpunk, who are also doing Don't Starve, they realised that the Don't Starve game was not ready enough for them to go to Kickstarter. So they have made a conscious decision to change all of their plans. And this is why, if you're wondering why, back in June or July, I did a playthrough on the channel for Don't Starve and said, this is coming to Kickstarter in a few months, and it hasn't. I have spoken to the designer of Don't Starve recently, and I have gone through all of the changes that they've made, and the changes make it a much, much better game. I don't have an updated version of it yet. I might be getting an updated version of it, and I hopefully will be doing another playthrough video for when they go to Kickstarter, because yeah, it is a much, much better game what they've done now. But they basically delayed their entire schedule of releasing this game in order to carry on working the game to make it as good as it can be. It is exciting, and playing it again at GridCon or demoing it again at GridCon, I was like, I can see why I enjoyed this. It was just so much fun and so enjoyable to play. So, final question is from Larry. Do you ever regret your position in the industry as it pertains to the pressures that you've had to withstand, as well as your inability to play the games that you want to play most of the time? No. I think is the easy answer to that. Do you ever regret your position in the industry? So I'm going to reword that question to, do I ever regret leaving a well-paid full-time job and setting up gaming rules and making this my full-time job? No, I don't regret that whatsoever. This has been the right thing to do for many, 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 many reasons. If you'd have asked me that 6 years ago, I may have had a different answer. But what's happened is over the last 5 or 6 years, the Patreon campaign has, and I'm not joking, it's changed my life. It absolutely has, because the patron support that I get supports me in 2 ways. First of all, financially. There are people out there who like what I do and want to support me and help me carry on doing what I do. And they give me an amount of money per month or on an annual basis, and the Patreon campaign has worked out. It's exceeded my expectations by a long way. And what that means is, if I decide to spend like 150 hours organising a charity raffle, for which I'm not getting paid. I got paid nothing at all. I used so much of my time over the last few months to organise a charity raffle that raised £6,500. I can do that. I have no worries whatsoever that, I'm having to literally give up work and not do paid work in order to do this. I don't have that worry, because the Patreon gives me the financial flexibility to be able to do that. It also gives me the financial flexibility to say, I'm only going to actually do paid work 2 days a week. And the rest of the time, I'm going to be doing videos that my Patreon supporters want to see. That's great. You know, being able to do the kind of things that I want to be able to do and, you know, still be okay financially is great. And the other thing is the moral support that I get from my Patreon supporters as well, which, when going through difficult times or when I just need people to, you know, give me a boost or anything like that, they are always there for me, and that is fantastic. And when I started Gaming Rules, I didn't do Patreon. So for the first few years of Gaming Rules, it was purely paid work, and any other videos that I did were not paid for whatsoever, and advertising wasn't even on at the time. So I was literally doing them and losing money by doing them. But yeah, since doing the Patreon, it's completely transformed everything. So don't regret it whatsoever. The pressures that I've had to withstand, that's been more of a personal development learning curve for me, about how I have dealt with that, and in some cases not dealt with that, and the implications and the ramifications of not being able to deal with it, and the inability to play the games that you want to most of the time. That's the bit I want to just touch on for a minute, because I feel very fortunate in that almost all of the games that I cover on the channel now are games which I would have liked to play anyway. I'm not saying always, because, as I've said before, I have a number of clients who I do a video for all of their games. And some of their games I'm not that keen on. But because they are a regular client and I will do videos, every single game that they do, I will do a video for. Some of their games are absolutely fantastic and I love them. Some of those games, I'll do the video, I'll learn it, I'll play it, and I'm like, right, I'm done with that. Never want to play that again. But most of the time, I am extremely happy about the games that I'm covering. And let's just talk about the last few months and where I am. I have just finished doing the how to play video for Civolution. I'm not kidding. Civolution is my #1 game of this year. And how rewarding is it to spend so much of my time creating a how to play video for a game which I think is utterly fantastic. Then, in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to start working on the how to play video for Galactic Cruise. Galactic Cruise would have been my #1 game of 2024, but it's not out until next year. It would have beaten Civolution for my favourite game of the year. So again, it's a job, but I feel extremely fortunate that I'm going to get to cover it. This Friday, this week is Andromeda's Edge week. I am learning Andromeda's Edge. I am playing this game multiple times this week, all in preparation for the live stream that I'm doing on Friday. I can't really give you my opinion on it, as I've only just played it once, and that was last night, and I was half awake. But you speak to other people, and they say Andromeda's Edge is a fantastic game. So I am getting the opportunity to cover some really, really great games. And if we look back at all of the games that I've covered, recently that I brought back from Essen, Black Forest was really good. Tea Garden was really good. SETI was really good. I'm going to skip that one. Because they were okay, but not really good. Moving down the list. I think that's it. Yeah. Oh, Manefa was also really good. So, yeah, very, very fortunate. And just, again, a big thank you to everybody who supports me and allows me to continue doing what I'm doing. Right. That's all of the questions. But before we go, just 2 more things. The contest. If you haven't entered the contest yet, do so now. You have until 4 weeks' time. The contest actually stays open all the way until the day of the next live Q&A. So if you're watching this video back in 3 weeks' time and you think, oh, I've missed the contest, you haven't missed the contest, you can still enter it. The link is in the chat right now. It's also in the description of the video. And the secret word is Ice Pirates. There you go. If you are a patron supporter of mine, you get 2 entries. For, you fill in the form, you get 2 entries. If you're not a patron supporter, you get 1 entry. Does mean that the patron supporters have a higher chance of winning, but somebody who was not a patron supporter won last month. So congratulations, Zara, for winning last month. And the other thing is, again, just wanted to say a big thank you to all of my patron supporters. All of the advertising revenue for this video goes to charity, so I don't make any money out of this video, and £50 of game vouchers goes out, and all of that is all possible thanks to the Patreon. So if you do want to support me directly, please don't feel that you have to, but if you do want to, it's patreon.com/gaming rules. And that is it. I think we're going to go downstairs and watch the last episode of Taskmaster. Has it been on? Okay, we're going to watch the last episode of Taskmaster tonight, and then I'm probably going to have an early night. Take care, everybody. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.